Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021. It is currently 5:46 p.m. Central Time. I'm coming to you live from the empty sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas, where, well, about an hour ago, maybe a little more than an hour ago, it was about 78 degrees outside. A beautiful November day in West Texas. Right now, it's 72 degrees. I was going to say a chilly 72 degrees. It feels a little colder now. It felt very warm earlier, but I'm here in the sanctuary. The sun is rapidly setting. The earth is turning. You get the idea. The sun is going down. Another day is coming to an end here in West Texas. I hope wherever you are, whatever the weather may be, however you may be listening, I hope things are going well with you. You know what it's time for, though. It's not time to talk about the weather. No, it's not time to talk about the earth turning. It's not time to talk about the sun going down. It is time to once again turn your attention, my attention, to Isaiah chapter 7. Now, before you get excited, I'm not going to be doing much teaching here. I'm just going to be trying to guide you once again and to some specific things I want you to look for. Now, it is Tuesday. Hopefully, you've already been reading Isaiah chapter 7 over and over and over and over and over and over again. And this is going to give you some very specific things to focus on. And hopefully, we'll even bring more things to light, bring in more questions, more ideas, more thoughts. But before we do anything else, I have to say this. I have to do this. In fact, I'm just going to do this. I have to do this because I don't know what to say, guys, other than I am just absolutely blown away by the people participating in this Bible study exercise. So all I can do is this. Yes, all I can do is applaud your work, your efforts. I was absolutely blown away by the things that was sent to me. Two individuals, they went all in. They went to work. One, I love the way they did it because they gave observation, then interpretation, observation, then interpretation. Here's the observation from the text. Here's interpretation, which is exactly what I'm always preaching. Everyone did a great job, looked up so much, asked so many questions, brought up so many issues. I mean, they did what a good Bible student is to do. You open the text, you dig in, and you're not afraid to ask the questions. You're not afraid to go, well, what about this? And what about this? And wait, this says this. And they just went in, they did what I really, really want people to do. And hopefully they have benefited greatly. Hopefully by the time they're done, they will be able to say, I understand Isaiah 7 better than I have ever understood it at any point in my study. I hope that turns out to be the case. I hope so. And then hopefully if we ever turn back to Isaiah 7 again, we can even improve on our understanding whatever understanding we come to in this study. Hopefully whenever we study it again in the future, we can once again improve our understanding. Every time we study a chapter, hopefully we can always improve what we've done on that chapter previously. Hopefully what I'm doing for Isaiah chapter 7 this time is better than all the other times I've studied Isaiah chapter 7. It's God's word. We never rely on our past understanding. We don't want to allow our past understanding to blind us to, increasing our understanding. Sometimes we'll take our past understanding and go, well, that's what the chapter means. That's what's there because that's what I saw last time. You got to forget what you saw last time and dig into the text anew each and every time. That's the way you correct past misunderstanding. That's how you discover new things. That's how you realize things you may have missed, realize things you may have overlooked. That's the way we grow. And that's a principle that I just have to continue to just put out there. But Isaiah chapter 7, that is the chapter this week for the Bible study exercise. Not in this episode, maybe tomorrow. maybe Thursday, I am going to take at least 2 of the emails and just literally walk through what was sent to me, because they did such a great job that I think that it would be beneficial for everyone else to hear what was sent, and then I can offer thoughts and comments and ask questions. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to at least set aside some time to do that. And because of what was brought up in a number of these emails, well, you're going to get some additional homework. So if you don't like the homework, you can't blame me. You got to blame 2 individuals who, because of what they did, I'm like, well, you know what? They're right. We've got to look at this. So hopefully this is all going to be beneficial and helpful to everyone. All right. Are you ready? Here's what I want you to do. Isaiah chapter 7. Part of me wants to just read. Well, I'm just going to read at least down I'm going to read down to basically I'm going to read what we've covered so far. There is one section that I'm going to really put an emphasis on that I may not read. Well, I may read it here. Who knows? What I really need to do is read all of chapter 7, all of chapter 8, but I'll just read some of this and then try to get you started on what I need you to do starting, this evening or tomorrow, whenever you get to this. All right, here we go. Let's start in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. Now, I could go back and start adding, trying to create an outline, but I'm not going to do any of that right now. And we've covered it multiple times so far. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim, and his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool and the highway of the fuller's field. And say unto him, Take heed and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the 2 tells of the smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah. All right, so take heed, be quiet, fear not, and neither be faint-hearted. Right, just a lot right there I could start teaching on, but that's okay. All right, so basically God, through Isaiah, tells Ahaz, look, take heed, pay attention, be quiet, be calm, fear not, neither be faint-hearted. If I said be faint-hearted, I apologize. Neither be faint-hearted. And there's just so much there. He's facing a very difficult circumstance, and God's message to him is calm down, don't fear, take heed, pay attention, don't be faint-hearted. And he says, because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah, vex it, let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeal. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. For the head of Syria, Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely you shall not be established. So it's a scary situation. There's no denying how bad the situation is and what they intend, but God is letting Ahaz know it's not going to come to pass. It's not going to happen. Just stay calm, remain calm. It's all going to be taken care of. Moreover, the Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God, ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And we think that there's just a complete, it's a complete sham. It's a complete front. He's putting on a mask pretending to be so super spiritual, but he's already got his solution. He already knows what he's going to attempt to do. He's already got an idea on how he's going to stand against this attack. He knows what he's going to do. and he's going to pretend to be spiritual, but it's nothing about being spiritual. He wants to take care of it this way. He doesn't want to wait on God, doesn't want to rely on God's promises, and he may feel like those promises are too far out, and he doesn't want to wait. Whatever the case may be, he puts forth an air of spirituality to cover the fact that he's going to do it. He wants to do it his way, and that's what he attempts to do. And he said, and so then God responds, okay, you don't want a sign? You don't want to sign? You don't want to ask for a sign so that you know this is going to come to pass? You're basically refusing. Then he says, and he said, hear ye now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary men? But will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and to choose the good, the land that abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. All right, I haven't thought about that. There's some things there we need to discuss. So I may have to add another question that I want you to work on, because now all of a sudden I just thought of something that I have not thought of before. But that's okay. I won't share that. So there is the situation, the concern, the fear, the pretend to be spiritual, basically wearying God because he's not ultimately trusting in God. He's going to trust in himself. And God's like, okay, I'm going to give a sign. And that sign ultimately is something that's going to happen hundreds of years after this fact. Hundreds of years after this, will be a son, will be born of a virgin, and his name will be called Emmanuel. That ultimately points to the coming of Christ. But there's a lot of historical things going on here that we have to understand that I think gives more impact to this story. And we've talked a lot about that. Then, verse 17 to 25. The Lord shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost parts of the rivers of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. And they shall come and shall rest of all of them in the desolate valleys, and in the holes of the rocks, and upon all thorns, and upon all bushes. And in the same day shall the Lord shave with a razor that is hired, namely by them beyond the river, by the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the feet, and it shall consume the beard. And it shall come to pass in that day that a man shall nourish a young cow and 2 sheep. And it shall come to pass for the abundance of milk, for they shall give, okay, let me read this again. And it shall come to pass for the abundance of milk that they shall give, he shall eat butter, for butter and honey shall everyone eat that is left in the land. And verse 23, and it shall come to pass in that day that every place shall be where there was 1,000 vines at 1,000 silverlings. It shall even be for briars and thorns. With arrows and with bows shall men come thither, because all the land shall become briars and thorns. And on the hills that shall be digged with the mattock, there shall not come thither the fear of the briars and thorns, but it shall be for the sending forth of oxen and for the treading of lesser cattle. A lot of words, very descriptive, almost in a poetic way, but all telling you what is coming, telling them what is going to happen. And there is a lot to unpack. And then from there, we go immediately into chapter 8. We go into chapter 8 and we read this. Moreover, the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll and write it with a man's pen concerning Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. That's a mouthful right there. So the Lord says unto him, take a great roll, write with a man's pen concerning Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. Well, just remember that. And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. Jaber Achiah. And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Then said the Lord to me, call his name Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. Wow, we've got a lot going on here. A lot there. Just reading it. It's so wordy. There's so much there. It's almost hard to read it and not try to stop for each phrase and try to describe it and take it apart. I apologize for not reading it the best, but you get the idea. It's all right there. Chapter 7, verse 1 to chapter 8, at a minimum to chapter 8, verse 4. That's really what I want you to expand your reading this week to chapter 8. I'm just going to tell you to read all of chapter 8. So I want you to just read Isaiah 7 and Isaiah chapter 8. I want you to read both chapters because I'm going to give you plenty to do and to work on, all right? Remember, Bible study exercise. I do some teaching. Some of this I'm just going to hand to you. So are you ready for some things you need to work on? Some of you have already started working on them, but that's okay. First thing I want you to do, I want you to compare the sons. I want you to compare the sons. And when I say sons, not S-U-N, S-O-N-S. I want you to compare the sons, okay? All right? Here is what I want you to do. Why would you think it's S-U-N-S? I don't know. S-O-N-S, just to make sure that there's no question about what I'm referring to. Here's what I want you to do. In fact, you will find the sons. Look at 7, verse 3. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub, thy son. There's son number 1. Son number 1 is Shear-Jashub. Shear-Jashub, who I want you to, in fact, make sure I've got it written down, I think, differently than it's actually. No, Shear-Jashub. Okay, I'll make sure. For some reason, I thought I was leaving out some things. Shear-Jashub. I want you to just write down, we've already worked on this, just the basic meaning of his name, anything else about him that you think is significant. We're going to compare different sons, and you'll see why. But the way we're going to compare them is just write down what you know about Shear-Jashub. You can look him up, make sure you know the name. Anything else significant about him, write it down. Anything else that you think is significant, write him down, because it's just interesting that there's a son mentioned right there in 7:3. Then the second son, you know the second one, mentioned in 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and he shall call his name Emmanuel. Now, you could start writing all the things you know about this son, Emmanuel, based off other passages of the Bible. Don't do that. Just start with Emmanuel. What does his name mean? And then, what does the text say about this son in verse 15 and 16? All right? And verse 15 and 16. What does it say about this son in verse 15 and 16? Specifically, I want you to look at this. I didn't think about this, but all of a sudden it dawned on me. I want you to really think about this. All right? Verse 15, we have butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse evil and choose the good. All right? That's going to be pretty straightforward, but you can just at least write down. Don't try to interpret what it means. Just, you're going to compare the sons. You're going to compare Emmanuel to Shear-Jashub, right? I just want you to compare them because it's just interesting. A son and then a son. And then we're going to go to another son here in a minute. But here's what I want you to really pay attention to verse 16. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. That seems to be a very specific prophecy connected to the son Emmanuel. That before the child knows to refuse evil and choose good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. What is going to happen before this son, Emmanuel, knows to refuse the evil? Before the son knows to refuse the evil, what takes place? I want you to identify what takes place, and I want you to identify, did it take place? When did it take place? Who was involved? How did it happen? It's very, very important, all right? Because we're identifying this, right? That something has to happen. So if you're going to say, well, this points to another son, that Emmanuel there, that promise of Emmanuel, that's not speaking of Jesus, or it's speaking of Jesus, but it's also speaking of another son. Well, this other son that you think may possibly being referred to here in this prophecy in Isaiah 7:14, well, when you look at that son, did that happen mentioned in verse 16? If you're going to identify another person, say, no, that's got to be a partial fulfillment. Well, if it's going to be a partial fulfillment, well, before that child, whichever child you're going to point to, before they knew to refuse evil, well, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. What land is abhorred there, and what two kings? And did that happen? I think that's very important part of the prophecy that a lot of times I've not given much thought to, or I have overlooked. So I want you to write down basically what you can learn about She'ar Jashub, right? Meaning of the name, anything else you think is interesting. Then I want you to look up Emmanuel. What's the meaning of the name? And then don't go anywhere else. Just what is said about Emmanuel right here in verse 15 and 16. Just write out just the observation. And then that thing that's supposed to happen, that the land that thou abhorrest before the child knows to refuse evil, what has to take place? That's connected to Emmanuel. That is connected. Here's what we know about Emmanuel. Before he knows to refuse evil, this will happen. Did it happen? When did it happen? Who was involved in making it happen? I want you to be very specific. I want you to look that up. Okay. Then we know the third son. Chapter 8, verse 1. Moreover, the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz. And then note verse 3. I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Right. So here's the third one. Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz. I want you to, what does that name mean? What does that mean? What do we know about this person? So we got three, and please note, 3 different times, it clearly says the son, all right? So you've got She'ar Jashub, Emmanuel, Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz. Compare all 3. Just compare all 3. And the reason why is some people believe Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz is a historical fulfillment of Isaiah 7:14, that if it points to Christ, there was also a historical fulfillment, and that child was it. Does that work? Because for Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz to fulfill this prophecy in any way, shape, or form, you would think at a minimum that before he knows to refuse evil, that the land that the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both of her kings. Did that take place? When was Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz born? I want you to compare the 3 sons. I just want you to compare them. Look, even if you say, well, it doesn't help me interpret anything, it doesn't help me understand anything, even if that's your conclusion, one of the major aspects of Bible study sometimes is just doing observation. And sometimes you may spend 2 hours working on observation, and when you're done, you don't really know what to do with it. It may not even help you in your interpretation, but guess what it helps you with? No one can ever come along and say anything like when you've spent all of this time comparing these 3 sons, She'ar Jashub, Emmanuel, Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz. By the time you're done, no one will ever be able to say anything about them. That's not true, because you've observed all the facts there is to know about them. And observation protects you from manipulation. So spend the time, know everything about them. All right? Okay, everybody good there? Now, the next thing I want you to do, I want you to work on, for any reason, if I've said Hebrews, I don't know why all of a sudden my mind thinks I said Hebrews. The next thing I want you to work on is Isaiah chapter 7, verses 17 through 25. Isaiah 7, 17 through 25, and I want you to figure out, when did this occur? When did it happen? Who was involved? How did it happen? How many details do we have about it? And how many of those details fit very nicely with what is described in Isaiah 7, 17 through 25? I want you to do extra work on this. Now, one of the things you can do to make it easy for you is look up Ahaz and a Bible dictionary, read everything you can about Ahaz, and I think you will get close to knowing what happened in 7:17 to 25. I think you're going to get close, and you're probably going to end up finding the following name. All right. I'm going to spell it for you. In fact, did I spell it correctly? Let me see here. I got to look up in a Bible dictionary because now I'm worried I didn't spell it. Okay, no, I did. All right, I'm going to spell it for you. Right. Tiglath, Tiglath. Okay, that's the first part of the name. Tiglath. Pileser, Pileser. Tiglath-Pileser III. Tiglath-Pileser III. I want you to look up everything you can about Tiglath-Pileser III and determine, did Tiglath-Pileser is he the one that brought about the fulfillment of Isaiah 7, 17 through 25? In other words, was he the one that was ultimately the human instrument to bring all of those things to pass? And does it fulfill it perfectly? Or is it pointing to something else completely different? All right, so assignment number 1, compare the sons. She'ar-Jashub, Emmanuel, Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz. All right, make sure you compare them. Know everything about them, right? And anything that's interesting. All right, because again, some people say Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz is, well, see, Isaiah 7:14, if it was going to be a sign and have anything to do with Ahaz, it has to be a son born somewhere around there. Well, there's one that's born. Does that fit? What is Mahar-Shalal-Hashbaz? What does his name mean? Everything you can find out about him, all right? Then I want you to work on 7, 17 to 25. What is the fulfillment of that? Is it Tiglath-Pileser III? Is it? Is it? If it is, and here's what I want you to do. Look up everything you can about Tiglath-Pileser. Now, one of the ways you can look up everything you can find about Ahaz, which is probably you're going to find a reference to Tiglath-Pileser, and then look up Tiglath-Pileser, and then look at everything that you can and go, yep, there's the fulfillment. There is the fulfillment. There. And if Tiglath-Pileser and his actions are recorded somewhere else in Scripture, make sure you write down those cross-references, which, well, you'll see. You'll see. I'm not trying to give too much away here. All right? So compare the sons. Work on the fulfillment of chapter 7, verses 17 to 25. Look up Tiglath-Pileser and write out at least a basic summary of who he was, what he did, and you can see, is it a fulfillment? And then I just want you to answer this question. You can do pretty much a simple yes or no. Is the child born in chapter 8, verses 1 through 3, in any way, shape, or form a fulfillment of 7:14? After you compare the three sons, ask yourself, is this any way, shape, or form a fulfillment? Any way, shape, or form, is this a fulfillment? Now you say, but no, it's not that son. It's this son. That's the son who did it. Okay, if you've got another son, if you've got another person that's born at a specific time that you think they are the fulfillment, that's fine. We'll get to that. Right now, we're working on the text in front of us. That's what we are working on, all right? So compare the sons. Compare the sons. Look for the fulfillment of 7, 17 through 25. And as you're working on the sons, comparing the sons, remember, as you're working on Emmanuel, you're going to have to work on what happens in 7, 16, and because that has to happen before Emmanuel can know to refuse evil. So you're going to have to figure out how that was fulfilled as well. But I'll just leave it under Emmanuel because I've already explained that to you. All right, the fulfillment of 7, 17 through 25. Look up Tiglath-Pileser and just whatever you can find out about him, and then answer the question, is the child born in chapter 8, verses 1 through 3 in any way a fulfillment of 7:14? And then this is what I really want you to think about. This has, what I'm about to ask you to do here has profound impact on the hermeneutic you will utilize through the rest of Isaiah. And you may not think this is important, but if you've ever read, I would challenge you, or you can download I think it's free online as well. Get you a copy of Matthew Henry's commentary, right? Famous commentary recommended by everyone. I had Matthew Henry commentary recommended to me by a pastor in an independent fundamental Baptist church. But man, when you get into Isaiah and the prophets, over and over and over, Matthew Henry will see prophecies in Isaiah. And in some cases, he will say, that was a prophecy, it was literally fulfilled. And then there'll be all of these other prophecies, specifically things related to Israel and some kind of future restoration or salvation of Israel. And guess what? All of a sudden, it's not literal. All of a sudden, it's spiritual. All of a sudden, it's not the nation of Israel. It's the church. It's going to be fulfilled in the church. And you're like, wait, how did you do this? This is why this is so important. I want you to look at all of these prophecies, right? We've got the prophecy of Emmanuel being born, right? Was that fulfilled literally? I think we would all say yes. A child was literally born of a virgin and called Emmanuel, God with us. That was literally fulfilled. Okay, well, that was literally fulfilled. All right. Was it literally fulfilled that Ephraim would... let's see, where is it? That in 65 years, Ephraim would be broken. Did that literally happen? You say, well, that literally happened. Okay, that literally happened. Ephraim was broken. Emmanuel was born. Are those literal things that happened? What did it literally happen that before Emmanuel knew to refuse evil, that the land which you had abhorred shall be forsaken of both her kings? Did that happen? Isaiah 7:17 through 25. How was that fulfilled? Was it literally fulfilled? Even though it's using very descriptive and poetic language, was it a literal fulfillment? You say, whoa, it was literally fulfilled. An army came in and did these exact things. Okay, then a literal fulfillment. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 3. Well, Mehar Shal al-Hashbaz. In a roundabout way, was that... you could say, was that a literal son born? And you can say, yes, it was a literal son born. Now, if all of these things are literal, right, then I want you to just overemphasize that in your mind so that whenever you're reading anything else in Isaiah and you're like, wait a minute, that's a prophecy to Israel. That's never happened. Well, okay, it's never going to happen literally. It's spiritual. What gives you the right to change how you're interpreting the book if over and over and over, prophecy after prophecy is literal? So I want you to write down how you see the prophecies are being fulfilled, literal or spiritually. If you say literally, then that to me is setting up a hermeneutic that you're going to have to be consistent with as you make it through the rest of Isaiah. You may not see the significance of this. Let me just explain. Here's where this comes into play. If you hold to an eschatology that would be more in line with amillennialism, you're going to be very prone to say, oh, wait, that's not Israel, that's the church. That's not Israel getting land, that's the church gaining prominence and influence. Like, you're going to do this over and over. As someone who used to be very strong in the amillennial camp, I know exactly how this game is played. I've done it. But at some point I started going, wait a minute. If everything else here is fulfilled literally, why wouldn't these be fulfilled literally? Which then started changing my eschatology little by little by little. But don't take my word for it. You look at these prophecies in chapter 7, chapter 8, or were these literally fulfilled? Like, well, they were literally fulfilled. I mean, did a virgin bear a son who's called Emmanuel? And you say, well, that was literal. Well, then that's establishing how you interpret the prophecies of Isaiah. All right, so there are your assignments. Compare the sons, Shear-Jashub, Emmanuel, Mehar Shal al-Hashbaz. I should just get I'm probably saying them incorrectly, but if I am saying them anywhere close to correct, I should get like $1 just for that. Okay. All right. No, I'm saying that because I'm just being honest. Those are a mouthful. So we can be honest with it. We can, we don't have to pretend to be smarter than we are. All right. Then we have, so compare the sons. Then I want you to work on the fulfillment of 7:17 through 25. And just remember, when I say compare the sons, when you're looking at Emmanuel, I've got to stress this. Don't forget, how was 7:16 fulfilled? So let's do it this way. I'm just going to add it because someone's going to overlook it and say, well, you didn't make it clear. I'm going to make it very painfully clear here. You ready? Compare the sons. All right? Compare the sons. She'ar Jashub, Emmanuel, Mahar-Shal al-Hashbaz. Compare the sons. Then I want you to answer, how was 7:16 fulfilled? Who, when, where, everything about it. How was it fulfilled? Identify it. I want you to send it to me. I want you to show me, no, this is when it was fulfilled. Here's where I got the information. Here is the text of scripture. Here's the dictionary, whatever. All right. And I want you to determine if there's agreement on the fulfillment of that or disagreement. Very important. Right. Then I want you to find the fulfillment of 7:17 through 25. What's the fulfillment of that? When did it occur? How did it occur? I want you to look up Tiglath-Pileser to see if he was involved in fulfilling it in any way, shape, or form. Is he the right person to look for as the person involved in fulfilling this? I want you to ask the question or answer the question, is the child born in chapter 8, verses 1 through 3 in any way a fulfillment of 7:14? And then I want you to answer, how are the prophecies being fulfilled? Literal or spiritual? And if you say literal, not me, you've established the hermeneutic that you have to use through the rest of the book, or you're going to end up being inconsistent. There you have it. Oh, there's so much more I want to do. So much I want to do. I want to give you some practical, I want to do some preaching here, but I can't. And it's, Stop. Okay. I'm trying to stop myself because I feel like I'm ripping you off here. But remember, these Bible study exercises are the way this is supposed to be done. It's to get you from, off the couch. It's to get you from just listening to actually participating. But again, I want to thank the two specific individuals. They know who they are. I almost want to say their name. Man, y'all knocked it out of the ballpark. It was like, I pitched the ball and man, you crushed it. It's gone. It left the ballpark. It left the city, the county, the state, the country. You killed it. It was amazing. I was blown away. Of all the Bible study exercises, no one has gone in that in depth and done that much. It was awesome. So thank you so very much, not only for participating, but just doing. It helps me because I was reading through this, I was like, whoa, they've done a better job than I could have done. But not only does it help me and challenges me and helps, hopefully make me a better student and learn more. Hopefully, though, honestly, by working on it the way you guys did, that you were like, wow, I think I really got this chapter down. And I'm telling you, you don't listen. You don't believe me? You start going from every church you can find on the internet, waiting for them to preach a sermon on Isaiah 7 and see how they handle the text. You'll be more prepared. And it's not to make you arrogant or conceited. I don't want that. But what I want you to see is the practical value of doing what you've done. You listen to these sermons, you're going to be like, wait, what? That's not true. You'll be able to determine immediately when the text is not being handled correctly. Now, you can then get all proud of yourself and go, I know more than 20 preachers. Don't do that. What you need to do is be humbled and say, thank you, Lord, for helping me learn so that I cannot be manipulated and I can detect when the text is not being handled correctly. Don't become arrogant and puffed up like you can walk around now, correct everyone. It's not about that you can correct everyone. It's about you are protected so you're not tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine and no one's manipulation can impact you. Don't view it as the way when I was young, I viewed it as, see, now I can correct that preacher. I can correct that preacher. I can correct that preacher. I'm smarter than all of them. I fell into that trap. Now I'm like, you know what? It's not about me being smarter than anybody else. It's thank God that I am now protected from any manipulation. And I can go, that's not what the text means. That's not what the text means. Now, yes, sometimes with that knowledge comes a responsibility to try to correct people when they mishandle the text. You've got to know when to do so, how to do so, and you got to make sure you're doing it because you care about the text and you don't care about just making yourself look smart or look better. That's always important as well. So, but I want you to just see the protection that you've gained when other people are going around quoting Isaiah 7:14 for the Advent Christmas season. You can be like, whoa, wait a minute. There's a lot there you just completely conveniently left out or completely ignored. The bottom line, we want to have a correct understanding of it. And we've got to correct this. We've got to understand this prophecy for the birth of Christ somehow in light of the historical context. It's got to mean something. Like you look at everything that was going on, it's got to reflect something. Like it's got to give us some greater understanding of Emmanuel being born. I just think there's too many, there's too much going on there. You've got kings, you've got war, you got people trying to be overthrown, you've got sons whose names mean different things. Somewhere in the midst of all of that, there's a spiritual lesson in all of it. And I don't want to turn into typology. I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying there's something interesting about the entire setting. And that setting has to give us a greater understanding of what Jesus did by coming to be born of a virgin, Emmanuel, God with us. And I think there's some lessons to be learned here. All right, I'm going to stop right there. I want to start preaching. Yeah, just like one of the emails, I just loved how it says, I love how it says verse 1-2, text observation. When Ahaz was king, 2 kings of Aram and Pekah went to fight Jerusalem but couldn't win. When the house of David was told, they were afraid. Verse 1, interpretation. It seems there were 2 kingdoms at the time, the southern kingdom, the line of David, Judah, and the northern kingdom, the rest of Israel. The split, according to Rabbi Singer, was because Solomon's son, approximately 2,900 years ago, refused to lower the high taxes imposed by his father, and a remnant remained with the line of David. At the point in the narrative, the north aligned with Syria, was seeking to overthrow the south aligned with Syria. Ahaz was very evil and not like his father. See, that's just such good stuff right there. I want to just go through all of it with you, but that's people doing work, and I like the fact that they've got observation, interpretation. Awesome. And I got the other email here as well. There's just so much good stuff. I've got it all copied in my notes, and we'll work through that together because I think that will just put it all back together. Someone was worried that I think I got an email, someone saying, man, we only got a week. No. Remember, one, we're a week ahead in some ways. We kind of are a week ahead. Technically, I don't know if we're a week ahead or not. You know what? We're not going to worry about that. What we're going to worry is about making sure that everyone understands Isaiah 7 and 8. And if there's something else you don't understand or something you're struggling with, we are going to make time for it. That's what I can promise you. Right? So there you have it. There's your work. There's your assignments. If you need to repeat any of those, you email me newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I know the curriculum is going to spend more time in Matthew 1. By all means, look at it. But our focus is Isaiah 7 and 8. And the reason is because I think everyone's just like, look, Isaiah 7:14. Look, there's the prophecy. And everybody just ignores all of the historical context. And when I say everyone, that's a general statement. Obviously, there's many churches and pastors who do a great job. But even in some of those, sometimes what they do a great job, but they just kind of like, okay, here, guys, here's basically what's going on. All right, now here's the prophecy about Jesus. Let's get to Jesus. And I understand we want to get to the prophecy of Jesus, but I just think that prophecy is better understood when we connect it somehow to the historical setting in which it took place. In other words, what can we learn from the historical setting that makes the prophecy of Jesus even more powerful and meaningful for us this Christmas 2021? That is what I hope we can accomplish and see if we can pull that off. All right, I'll stop right there. Email me newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Oh, there's so much more I wanted to do this evening, but we're going to have to stop. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard doing the Bible study exercise. It really is. But I hope you're benefiting from it. All right, everyone, have a great evening, great night, and I'm going to head home. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow. Don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. Don't know, but you probably know there's going to be some live broadcasting happening somewhere tomorrow. So just tune in. We do need to get back over to Podbean to do some live broadcasting. I'll probably try to do one tomorrow, but since I was just going to do more assignment giving than teaching, I thought I would leave that here. And then tomorrow I'll try to find something that we can do on Podbean that will be more, fits better with what we're trying to do there. All right. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great evening. God bless.